So as I was doing a video for the winch mount install, my winch actually showed up. I went ahead and got the 10,000 pound X2O Smittybilt waterproof winch with wireless remote, synthetic line. So what I did is I ended up removing the front bumper again just to make it easier for the installation video. I'm sure you could do it with the bumper on. Might be a little tight underneath that air dam, but it could be done. The only thing you need to do down there is get 4 bolts into the... Alright, so just unfinished unboxing the winch, and a couple things to note. This is all the hardware that came with it in my kit. Nowhere in the instructions did I see anywhere where it said what was supplied in the kit, but for the most part it looks like everything's there. The instruction manual is pretty nice. It also in the back gives you a complete breakdown of how to break down the winch if you need to replace the motor on it or something like that, which is pretty nice. It's a lot of things I haven't seen in other winches. Got the synthetic line, got the house fair lead. This is a wired or wireless remote. Here's the control box. Here's the winch itself. Long black cable. And all the hardware. This box right here can be mounted in 2 different ways. You can mount it on top, or you can use these supplied brackets to sit down in here, and they have holes on both sides of it that you can mount this box to the side instead of top. It just depends on your preference and I guess where you can fit it on different Jeep models. All right, so I just got done test fitting the winch. I have it in there right now. I have a couple of the front bolts in. Just wanted to make sure that it was going to work for this particular winch and this particular winch plate. You're just going to use the holes that are the single holes by themselves. You can't see them now, but they don't use any of these slotted ones. It's just the regular round holes for all those. I'm going to go ahead and pull it back out and get it wired up and set it back on, because it'd be a lot easier to do that outside of the Jeep than to try to get back down in here to try to get the wires connected to all those different nuts and everything. All right, I got the control box mounted. I'd be lying if I would say it was easy. Be careful with these little screws. They aren't very strong. Smittybilt makes the back of the winch very easy. They color code and label by letter which cables are supposed to go where. And then in the instruction manual, it'll also give you the rundown of everything and where it needs to go. Next step will be to get this thing mounted in the Jeep. All right, I got the winch set down in there. As you can kind of see back in here, I ran both the black cable and the red power cable through this little gap right here above the sway bar motor, if you have that in your Rubicon. All right, next step is to use these square nuts, and what they do is, as you can see down in there, there's a little square hole. So you just kind of slide them in there, and that holds it so you don't have to hold it with your other, with a wrench or anything. It sits down in there, and then you put the bolt in through the bottom. You want to ensure that you have your bolt lock washer and a regular washer on it, and that goes up through the bottom of this plate right up into that hole right there. It screws into that nut. All right, at this point in time, I have all 4 nuts and the 4 bolts holding the winch in. I went ahead and tightened them down. At this point in time, I'm gonna go ahead and put the bumper back on. All right, before you put the bumper back on, make sure you get this plate off. There's these tabs that you gotta push down on. They're just plastic, not very hard. The hardest part is getting all 6 of them at the same time to break loose. And that plate just pulls straight off, and this is where your fair lead's gonna mount. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and get this bumper back on. So we tighten everything down. you get that back on, make sure you tighten down all the bolts that you loosened earlier when you're putting the winch plate in. Make sure your electrical connector's not pinched in there. Alright, so I switched things up a little bit. Move this box over here to the side using the 2 supplied brackets, because the problem was when I was trying to mount it back on there, it was sitting so close up here, it was actually hitting my grill and pushing against it. So instead of letting it scratch that up, I opted to move it to the side and mount it with those 2, I don't know if you can see that or not, the 2 metal brackets that are on there. And another thing to note, before you tighten the winch down, tighten these 4 bolts in the back to that plate, because if not, once you get the winch mounted in there, it's going to be extremely difficult to get to those. Put the bumper back on, you're going to want to get this fairly on the bumper, because if not, it's going to be very hard to get down in there with the winch right there to get this on. So you can just lean this up against something, drop these 2 bolts in to hold it. Make sure you get the washer, lock washer on the inside, along with the nut. And once you get in there, just go ahead and tighten that down, and then the bumper will be ready to go back on. All right, once you get the fairly mounted on, you can go ahead and get the bumper thrown on. Just a note, besides the bolts that I put in the back, all the rest of the bolts for the front bumper are still loose. Still make sure my electrical connector is not pinched. And then we can go ahead and get the nuts put on and hold the bumper on. Just got done finishing getting the bumper bolted back up. It's the 2 bolts down here, the ones next to the winch. And then the 4 on the bottom, they were the ones that were holding the air dam brackets, the ones that I had to drill out and cut. 2 are back in there, and the other 2 are buried back in there behind the motor. That was definitely the harder of the 2 sides to do. Alright, so I got the winch wired up. I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well, but I ran the wires straight from the bottom. There was almost this gap right here, and ran it straight up, tucked it in. I hooked the negative up to that side. I hooked the positive up to this empty pole right there. And everything is working fine. The next step, we'll go ahead and get the cable reeled in. When it's all complete and in, temporarily using this until my Maximus 3 hook anchor comes in. It goes behind a fair lead to hold the hook, but this will work until then. Thanks for watching.